Good morning and welcome to Breakfast at Productronica, day one at the show, and we actually made it. There's a huge crowd outside waiting to get in. Obviously, because of the COVID restrictions, things are a little bit slower than usual, but nevertheless, we have a huge program for you this week. My first guest on my program today is Luc Van Den Hove, who is the president of IMEC in Belgium, and he's also a key member of the SEMI board. So welcome, Luc. Nice to see you today.
Nice to see you.
Okay, so I think the first thing I want to talk about really is to ask you what we can expect from Semicon Europa, because Semicon Europa, of course, is one hall here at the Munich Messe here. What can we expect to see there today?
Well, I think that it's so important that we can meet physically. I think after such a long lockdown, and I think it's clear that we are still not out of this crisis. But it is so important. I mean, last year the entire event was virtual. I think it's so important to have the connection among all the people, and especially now in these times where there's so much to do about chips, about the supply chain of chips, the shortages and so on. It is so important that people can gather again.
It's a very fluid market. I mean, there's so many variables and things happening at the time, as you say, supply chain being one of them. There's also a lot of new technologies coming on the market. Of course, we've got electric vehicles coming through. We've got heterogeneous technologies and even quantum computing on the horizon. So how does SEMI play into some of these new technologies?
Well, I think that there is indeed so much happening these days in this world, and I think the role of SEMI is to a large extent to bring the ecosystem together through shows like this, but also by organizing many events. The semiconductor industry actually is characterized by a global supply chain and global interactions. Also, the innovation is to a large extent the result of many of these global interactions. And this is where SEMI tries to contribute by really bringing the people together and representing this industry, which is really important. I think over the last year, the attention to chips has increased dramatically. Now everybody talks about chips and realizes how important this technology is to drive innovation in so many sectors. You mentioned the automotive sector. This is one sector, but basically all industrial sectors built on innovations from semiconductors and chips.
Right. So let's mine down a little bit on the heterogeneous technologies, because it's characterized by packages with chiplets inside them, essentially. And these chiplets have materials that are compatible, very few CTE mismatches, etc. Do you see that as a technology becoming standard going forward? I mean, if you open your iPhone at the moment, you'll see pretty much 8 big chips, large chips, and very few small discrete semiconductors. Do you think that's going to be a pattern for the future?
Absolutely. I think this is going to be extremely important. In fact, this heterogeneous integration is just one more step in this evolution which we have been experiencing already for 40, 50 years in the semiconductor industry, and that is this drive towards building always more complex systems. We need to do that in order to respond to this insatiable demand for processing more data, storing more data, integrating more functionality in our systems, and that requires kind of a reduction of the form factor to a large extent, and this has been enabled through what we typically know as Moore's law, where we are integrating more and more chips on a single die. But this Moore's law is also one other version of Moore's law is by stacking the chips on top of each other using interposer technology, and this is also needed because one technology may not be ideal for all the functions of a system, and so we, by combining these chiplets using heterogeneous integration, we can optimize the process technology for each of these individual parts in a chiplet, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's going to be very important, a very important technology to make these ultra complex systems that we will need in the future.
For the future, yeah, absolutely. And talking about future technologies, I mean, I touched on quantum. How far out do you think that is?
Well, I believe that high-performance computing is very important, and there are several steps to be taken there. There is now the implementation of artificial intelligence in a much more energy-efficient way into these accelerators, and so domain-specific compute technologies are being developed. And quantum compute is like one of these steps, but it's still quite relatively far out. It's not going to be a general purpose computing platform that can be applied to everything, but specific, highly parallelized tasks could run very efficiently on quantum computing. But we believe, although there is a lot of progress being made over the last couple of years, we're still talking about something that is maybe 10 years out, I believe.
Right, okay, okay. Yeah, another word that seems to have been, obviously we had last week in Glasgow, we had COP25. So another word that's creeping into our lexicon these days is sustainability.
Absolutely.
How does that apply to electronics and possibly even the electronic supply chain? Does it make sense to ship these components and devices halfway around the world?
Yeah, well, I think that sustainability is extremely crucial in our industry. On the first hand, I'm very convinced that our technology and our chip technology, we have to make those processes more performant, more energy efficient, because if we don't develop newer technology, more performant technology, given the fact that the data rate is exploding exponentially, if we would not develop more efficient technology, more performant technology, more energy efficient technology, our energy consumption related to electronics would just explode exponentially. Yep. It would exceed even the world's available energy a few years from now. So this is impossible. So our industry really has the task to develop technologies that are more energy efficient, and that's why we have this continuous push towards more SLAW and to enable more SLAW. And I'm convinced it's not going to stop. So on the one hand, our technology can contribute to solving some of the big sustainability challenges on our planet. On the other hand, we have to make sure that when we fabricate those chips, that we do that in a sustainable way. And so there is a very big focus now in our industry to make sure that we optimize energy consumption during the manufacturing, that we minimize water consumption, optimize waste treatment, make sure that we minimize greenhouse gas emission during the fabrication processes. And I believe that for that, the entire supply chain needs to work together. And therefore, we are setting up a major program at IMEC to bring together all the key players representing all the layers of the value chain, like material suppliers, equipment suppliers, the fab companies, with the goal to really develop technologies that are more sustainable for the future. And nobody alone can do that. You have to bring together the ecosystem, and I believe that's also where SEMI can play an important role.
Yeah, excellent. No, I agree. I think it's going to be something that's going to play into the future roadmap for electronics in a big way.
Absolutely.
But there you go. Anyway, Luc, I want to thank you for sparing some time to come in and talk to us today. It's great to see you. I hope you have a wonderful show this week at Semicon Europa. There's certainly plenty of people out in that lobby that are waiting to get in, so which is an encouraging sign. But for now, thank you very much for coming in.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Super.
It was a pleasure.
So there you go. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest mergers in the industry in the recent weeks.
For micro dispensing, there is one product line that is proven and trusted by manufacturers in semiconductor packaging, electronics assembly, medical device, and electromechanical assembly the world over. DL Technology, superior pumps and needles for the finer things in life. SMT Thermal Discoveries are the experts in thermal processes from -50 degrees Celsius up to 450 degrees Celsius. With highly stable reflow soldering systems, vacuum soldering to reduce voiding in solder joints, whether you need temperature treatment systems with standard equipment or flexible solutions, SMT Thermal Discoveries have the machine to your thermal challenges.
Okay, and welcome back. Now I'm delighted to be joined by Yoav from Nano Dimension, which has got probably the biggest merger news at the moment at the show. Nano Dimension, of course, recently making the acquisition of Essemtec. So welcome, Yoav. Nice to have you with us today.
Thank you very much for speaking to this one.
Yes, just speaking into that one. So tell me, first of all, I mean, Nano Dimension obviously cut its teeth with a 3D unique system for making multi-layer PCBs.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about why you think you needed to. You also acquired another AI company, by the way.
Yes.
In the meantime, so you've got an AI company. You recently acquired Essemtec, which is does tier 3 and tier 4
Sure.
equipment for SMT manufacturing. What's the synergy?
Okay, so Trevor, the vision of converting the PCB industry into, let's say, more advanced, more modern, has to deal with two issues. First of all is the fabrication of PCBs, which is a very old, 70, 50 years old process of fabricating it, and not too clean, not too efficient, but that's the way it's done.
Mm-hmm.
But the second part of the PCB industry is the PCBA, obviously the mounting of surface mounts, which by now, the surface mounting became actually, from robotics and automation point of view, more advanced than the fabrication of PCB over the years. Now, once you come with a solution of changing the old fabrication process into being inefficient and as such to be by printing 3D, you can stick with just printing the board in 3 dimension. But if you're already where we are in printing the board in 3 dimension, in multi-layers, in different shapes, somewhere in the process you have to start to mount units, components, because you're printing in 3D, so sometimes you will print over the units. And if you don't mount them on the way, what did you change? You'll end up still having to have boards that are flat because they have to go for mounting.
Right.
So the vision and the acquisition of Essemtec is the fact that we're going to combine in the automatic process of printing a 3-dimensional board. During the process, it will be also mounting the units, the components on the board. So think about a board that instead of fabrication is being printed, at certain point of time, you mount automatically. You mount components, you continue to print, you mount more components, you continue to print, until when you finish, comes out from the printing machine a board with mounted components.
Yeah, so basically you're using a robot inside a pick-and-place machine to turn the device to keep it planar so that you can mount the
Yes, and by the way, Essemtec had historically already had the mounting technology that was from the side, which they initially developed and then they dropped because the industry was not ready for that. So we're very excited about now bringing it back, and we will mount on different angles. Because we're going to print in different angles.
Now, the thing is that obviously the Nano Dimension machine for making the boards is a fairly complex piece of equipment.
Yes.
A fairly expensive piece of equipment too.
Yes.
So, are you planning to sell this as a unit to people, a Nano Dimension machine plus an Essemtec assembly, or are you planning to run it as a service?
Excellent question. 2 answers to that question, as usual. First of all, initially we will sell the 2 machines separately, but we will have a robotic connection, so they'll be standing beside each other. So once you finish printing a circuit board, you'll be able to mount and it'll be connected. Second, next generation machine is going to be integrated. In the process, we're going to give services as well. We're already giving services because it's becoming expensive. So, and it's a new technology. So you're in market education. So we already have customers that are paying us a few $1,000s per project, and we have actually we call it service centers in Germany, in Israel, in the United States, where we exactly do what we do. We give the services, and people, once they get used to it and they start to like it, eventually we hope they'll buy a machine.
Wonderful, yeah. Okay, so it's there's quite a lot of parts to that. So when do you think you're going to be up and running with it?
Up and running with the services, we're already up and running with services.
Right.
The Essemtec acquisition happened 2 weeks ago. So we believe that the combination of the two machines, one beside the other, robotically connected but not integrated, will be somewhere in the middle of the year 2022, maybe toward the end of the year. And right after that, in parallel, we are already so we started before the end of the acquisition to build a machine that has the SMT already integrated into the machine. So it's not machines standing one beside the other. It'll be one machine that's doing both.
Right. Now, is it your intention to keep Essemtec operating in the way it has been with its existing Tier 3 and Tier 4 customers?
Absolutely. We intend. Essemtec has a great brand recognition, especially in Europe. Plus, they have a beautiful operation in Lucerne Canton, which is by now more than 20 years old. So we intend to continue to serve the customers. We intend to take their machines as they are and expand the market in the United States, which they are historically not strong in, and we are much stronger. But in parallel to that, and serving the existing customers with existing machines, and the new machines are coming, we're going to do the integration I talked to you about in the R&D laboratories, and we'll come with the 2 generation within this year and toward the end, the beginning of next year. So
excellent.
As an operation, Essemtec is going to continue to grow because we see demand. They're having great year this year. Very good year, and they're expecting even better year next year. So we're looking forward to do that as well.
Oh, we're certainly in an industry that's expanding by application all the time,
Yes,
so
yeah,
there's no shortage of opportunities,
Yes,
that's for
absolutely,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, great. Well, I want to thank you for coming in and telling us about this today. It's a really exciting announcement.
Trevor, your questions are excellent. I'm always happy to talk to somebody who I feel understands what he's talking about.
What he's talking about, yeah.
It's always a
well,
pleasure.
it's an interesting industry.
We're a public company. Sometimes I speak with investors, right?
Yeah.
So investors are great supporters, but not all of them understand what you know.
What you're doing. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So there you go. So that brings us to the end of this morning's breakfast at Productronica. We'll be back in about 30 minutes' time with the first of our panel discussions coming from the forum. But for now, this is Trevor Galbraith saying thank you for watching.